Hello friend, Pastor John Braylon, President of International Ministerial Fellowship and General Overseer. And this is the fourth in a series of videos that I'm doing related to leadership. And today I have something that is very important and it affects you. But you might not even know about it, but it certainly affects you in profound ways because if you are in ministry, you've had to deal with this more than once. I don't care if you're a chaplain, a parachurch worker, senior leader, or other leader in a church ministry somewhere or wherever you are. This is something that affects you on a regular basis, and it's called a shadow system. A shadow system. Now, to unpack this, let me share with you that what a system is. A system is a set of interacting or interdependent components, detailed methods, procedures, and routines that carry out a specific activity. For example, in a house, there's the electrical system. That means you have outlets on the wall, you have lights in the ceiling, you have switches that turn them on and off. You also have an HVAC system. That's heating and ventilation and air conditioning. So you have heat that blows through a set of pipes, you have cool that might blow through a set of pipes, and you have a plumbing system. This is how you run water into the house and get rid of the wastewater. So your house has multiple systems that work together to create a pleasing environment. In the church world, there are also different systems at play. Some of these are the formal systems. A formal system would be an elder board, a deacon board, a governing board that makes the formal decisions within the church, and the rest of the church is supposed to follow this formal structure. Now, the challenge that we face in organizations is that every organization has shadow systems. Now, there's the formal way of getting things done, and then there's the informal way of getting things done. Your board supposedly has all of the power in your organization, but in reality, who makes the key decisions? Is it really the board? I'll give an example back from my military days. So I got sent off, I was in the United States Air Force, and I got deployed to Turkey, where we got sent down to a place called Salopi, Turkey, that was 2 miles from Iraq and 3 miles from Syria. And when we were there in the desert, it was hot. I mean, it was so hot. The temperature, we're in a canvas tent, no air conditioning. We had to set these things up, and it was smoking hot. Well, as time went on, as the weeks rolled by, we had a supply clerk, and the supply clerk was in our tent. And it just so happened that one day, we had snow camo that showed up, and we put it over our tent. And the funny thing is that out of all of the tents in our tent city, they were all the U.S. military issued green tents. We had a green tent that had a snow-covered tarp over it to hide our tent. Now, what in the world was this snow camo doing in the middle of the desert? Well, that was an example of a shadow system. You see, our supply clerk called a friend and traded a few things, and next thing you know, some supply clerk in another place accidentally sent us snow camo to the middle of the desert. So we were the only ones with snow camo, which lowered the temperature in our tent about 20 degrees. The funny thing is that if he would have used the formal system, if our supply clerk would have used the formal system, nobody in the world would have sent a snow camo to the middle of the desert. Nobody does that. That's wrong. It would have been denied right away. But because our supply clerk was, crafty and had some connections, he tapped into the informal system and got delivered what we needed. I'm just telling you, none of our commanders complained, none of our officers complained, nobody, because our tent was literally the coolest in the entire tent city. Well, in your church, you also have shadow systems. Here's an example. I was once working with a church, and the board had made a certain policy that said, what time the church services were going to be, and they made this decision, and it was supposed to be told throughout the organization. And lo and behold, the chairman of the board actually had to talk to his mother, who had been in the church for like 70 years. She was very aged at this time. He went and spoke to her in the nursing home, and she didn't like the times. So she came back and told him, nope, these times have to change. So he shared it with the board, and the entire board changed the service times based on one woman who was holding this informal power. That's a shadow system. See, shadow systems operate before the meeting, after the meeting, and during the week. everyone on your team knows who can get things done, so they don't use the formal systems, they use these informal shadow systems. So one of the things that you need to do is you need to be aware of the shadow systems that exist in your church. In other words, who really runs the missions department? Who really is responsible for the outreach? Who does discipleship? Who's the one that you might have the most influence on the facility? Chances are the same person that has the most influence might not hold any formal position of power. You need to recognize this person and, if possible, align the shadow system with the formal system. That will help you with communication. Because when you have too many shadow systems that are operating, the formal systems simply don't work very well and people get frustrated, and then they go to what needs to be done and to the person that will make it happen. So as a leader, first you need to be aware that shadow systems exist in your organization. They exist in every organization. Second, find out who the power brokers are. Who are the ones that are the movers and the shakers in these shadow systems? And do you need to have any one-on-one conversations with them? It's very hard to break these shadow systems. The best thing that you can do is align them with the formal systems that you have in place in your church, parachurch, or other organization. Even if you're a military chaplain, shadow systems exist. For example, just because someone is a captain or a colonel, it doesn't mean that they hold the real decision-making privilege. That could very well be a sergeant or an airman or just a regular old person in the service with you. So just be aware of the shadow systems that you have in your organization. Once you're aware of them, you can leverage them and help them come into alignment to fulfill your organization's overall goals. And if you ignore the shadow systems and simply press in and say, well, these are the formal systems, all you're going to do is alienate people and irritate people. Because your church for years has functioned on shadow systems, and most people are oblivious to how these actually work. So your job as a leader, identify them, try to bring them into alignment with what you're actually doing, and leverage them to make the best out of your organization so that you can fulfill the purpose that God has instilled in you for you to accomplish. So that being said, you stay strong, you keep serving, you make a difference for the glory of God, and be aware of the shadow systems that exist in your organizations. Bye for now.